This is Dan Ferrisi, editor with Sound and Communications Magazine. Happy to be joined this afternoon by Kevin O'Connor, Director of Sales for the B2B Group with Sony. Thank you for joining me, Kevin.
Happy to be here, Dan. Thanks for having me.
So the topic of conversation is COVID-19, as it has been throughout this video interview series. Curious, Sony is obviously a major multinational global corporation. How have business operations been affected by stay-at-home orders, shelter-in-place orders, whether in the US, whether in Japan, all over the world? How have day-to-day operations been affected?
Well, I'd be remiss to say that they haven't been impacted, because they certainly have. I think Sony was very early to the game in terms of limiting our air travel, limiting what we were involved in, taking the shelter at home very seriously before it even became a policy. In Japan, we've had some of that going on for some time now, where we're not going into our headquarters buildings, those sorts of things. Here in the United States, literally since the beginning of March, we've stopped a lot of our unnecessary travel. Certainly for us, our service department is open. Our service depots are open and operating in accordance with local restrictions. So we're abiding by what the local governments are saying in those situations. But in terms of access, I mean, I think being part of the AV industry, our account managers, our product managers, our sales engineers and sales support engineers and specialists, we've all been operating from home, much like I'm sure you yourself are, Dan, working from home, trying to do our best to work with our customers, not only our integrator partners, but also our end users. And we've got a few things that I'm sure I'll talk about here in a little bit that we've been doing to kind of aid in that.
So in terms of supply chain issues, getting components, getting parts for manufacturing, the manufacturing itself, has there been any diminution in Sony's ability to get its products into the waiting hands of its customers? Obviously, there's a lot of demand in professional settings, installed settings around the world. How up in terms of getting products to people?
Great question. So for us, we've actually, on the display side of the business, I run the display side of the business, we've actually been very, very lucky in terms of our supply chain. We've been operating at or close to 100% now for some time from a production standpoint, in terms of getting our flat panels, our projectors, our network cameras, our crystal LED product, our 4K SXRD product. We've actually got quite a bit on hand, and our factories have been working. Some of that stuff is, we have factories all over the world. Some of that stuff is in Japan. Some of it's here in the United States. Some of it's down to Mexico. So we have, been able to sustain quite a bit of our planned forecast for the first quarter, and second quarter. We've been doing very, very well there. Certainly it's impacting more our integrator partners and really the end users. In terms of getting into their facilities to be able to do the work that they want us to do. I think that's been the biggest struggle. Some we can get in, some we can't get in. So that's been a bit of a struggle. But in terms of supply, we've actually been very, very lucky in terms of what we've been able to do on the display side of the business for Sony.
So one of the questions I've been asking a lot in my video interviews is about economic relief and government efforts in that regard. But there's a little bit of a different twist with this, because you were telling me before we got on camera that Sony has been doing some humanitarian and charitable and philanthropic efforts in relation to COVID-19. Can you tell me about those?
Yeah, I'm very proud of our company. I mean, we quite some time ago, Sony announced that we would do a COVID-19 relief fund, global relief fund, where it pledged $100 million to those that were affected by the COVID-19 virus. I mean, that's a lot of money. Additionally, Sony pledged a match program for our employees. And when you put that in perspective, there's over 110,000 employees worldwide for Sony. So Sony's committed 100% match to anything that, what I decide to give from a charitable standpoint to COVID-19 relief. Sony will match at 100%. So they've been very aggressive in terms of making sure that we're there, even for our customers. And this, obviously this pales in comparison to what we're doing on the from a corporate or humanitarian standpoint. But we've not cut our programs. We've not cut any of those sorts of things that help our customers make a little bit more money, whether it's a back-end program, whether it's a spiff program, what have you. We've kept all that stuff in place. We want to be committed to making sure that we're trying to keep business running as close to normal as possible.
Well, I think it's really commendable, all of the efforts Sony is undertaking organizationally, and I'm sure it's making a big difference in people's lives. So as one commercial AV family, and I know Sony is a big part of that commercial AV family, to whether they're other manufacturers, dealers, integrators, consultants, design engineers, even your competitors, people struggling through a difficult time right now, what would be your words of wisdom for fellow members of the commercial AV family?
You know, I think we have to lead by example in certain regards. Early on in this, we took a very aggressive approach in an outreach standpoint. We had one about an hour ago. We call it Technology Tuesdays, and we're not taking it's a training session, right? So, but it's not a training session like you would normally see. It's really much more of a application-driven training session. So we are including a lot of the third-party products as well as what we're doing. So we've really tried to take more of an aggressive approach in reaching out, making sure that, from an AV perspective, we're the ones that are showing people how to do e-learning, how to do business via virtual business, and have the appropriate tools in which to do it. So I think, what we've been telling our teams internally is, hey, we can't be thinking about how the way business used to be done. We've got to be thinking about how the way business will be done. You had mentioned earlier that your wife is a teacher, mine is as well. I think one of the things that, e-learning has showed us quite a bit as to how things are going to be changed in the future. And we've got to make sure that we're prepared as technology providers to help bridge that gap.
Absolutely. I think every cloud does have a silver lining. And I think we have to recognize the fact, as you say, as technologists, as technology providers, this will be a way for us to integrate our technologies into the workplace back when we're allowed to go into it again, whether it's UC&C or conferencing products, video conferencing, different ways to communicate with each other. I think the technology industry will be able to benefit from this in the long run when we're back into these commercial environments.
Yeah, well said, Dan.
Well, thank you once again, Kevin. I really do appreciate your time and your efforts organizationally to battle back against this COVID-19 pandemic. Happy again to have been joined by Kevin O'Connor, Director of Sales for the B2B Group with Sony. This is Dan Ferrisi, Editor with Sound and Communications. Thank you once again.